Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is August 25th. On this day in 2016, in Brighton, England, 19-year-old Shana Grice was murdered by her stalker, Michael Lane. She had gone to police 5 times asking for help, and each time her fears were brushed aside. Today, we're looking back at the murder of Shana Grice, a case that shook the UK and revealed devastating flaws in how stalking was, and often still is, handled. Let's get started. Shana first met Michael Lane in 2015 when they both worked at Brighton Fire Alarms. At first, it seemed harmless. It was a casual fling between co-workers. But when Shana decided to end things and return to her high school boyfriend, Ashley Cook, everything changed. Lane didn't let go. He fixated on her. A friend would later recall him saying, quote, "She'll pay for what she's done," end quote. From there, his behavior escalated. He hid a GPS tracker on her car so he could monitor her every move. He left unwanted flowers, damaged her car, and even targeted Ashley, leaving threatening notes on his vehicle. By February 2016, Shana had gone to police for the first time, reporting Lane stalking and increasingly erratic behavior. But instead of building a case, they set a tragic chain of events in motion. The harassment escalated again in March. On the 24th of that month, Lane pulled Shana's hair and ripped her phone away from her. He was arrested briefly, but in a cruel twist, Shana herself was fined £90 for wasting police time. This was simply because she hadn't initially admitted that Lane was her ex-boyfriend. After that, she was left even more vulnerable. By July, things had gotten terrifying. On the 9th, Lane broke into her house using a stolen key. Shana later told police that she woke up to the sound of someone breathing in her bedroom, and she just hid under her duvet, praying that he would leave. Lane was let off with nothing more than a caution. The very next day, Shana got 7 phone calls from a blocked number. In one, all she could hear was heavy breathing. Police again categorized it as low risk. 2 days later, on July 12th, Lane followed her as she drove to work. Again, she reported it. And again, the case was marked low risk. By August, Shana was becoming hesitant to even call police. She told her friend Joanne Pumphrey that she was scared that they wouldn't believe her, especially since they had already fined her once. So when she saw Lane lurking outside of her house on August 4th, she didn't even bother to report it. She was living in fear and being silenced not by her stalker, but by the very people who were meant to protect her. Then, on August 25th, 2016, Michael Lane acted on the threats he had clearly been building toward for months. That evening, knowing that Shana was home alone, he broke into her house and slit her throat. And then, while she was still alive, he set her bedroom on fire. Her body was discovered by Ian Cook, the father of her boyfriend, who had smelled smoke and rushed in. The scene he found was horrifying. Shana's life had been stolen in the most brutal way possible. Meanwhile, Lane tried to carry on as if nothing had happened. He went into work as usual and was arrested later that day. To police, he told lie after lie before eventually admitting that he had gone to Shana's house that day. However, he claimed that by the time he had gotten there, she was already dead. He said that he had just found her body when the door was left open and that he fled in a panic without dialing 999 or telling anyone what he had found. But later, forensic evidence and the fire investigation would disprove his story. What did emerge was clear. Lane's campaign of stalking had culminated in murder. And despite Shana's repeated cries for help, the system had failed to stop him. In March 2017, Michael Lane stood trial at Lewes Crown Court. For 2 weeks, the court heard about his obsession, his stalking, and the deliberate way he had planned Shana's death. Lane admitted to the stalking, but not to the murder. The jury didn't buy it. After less than 2 hours of deliberation, they returned a guilty verdict. During sentencing, Justice Green didn't hold back. He described how Lane had cut Shana's throat, set her room on fire to cover his tracks, and had even stolen her bank card to take 60 pounds after she was gone. He called it a, quote, high degree of calculated planning and premeditation, end quote. Shana's mother, Sharon, spoke through tears, saying, quote, Shana was a beautiful, bright and bubbly, kind-natured 19-year-old. We have lost her giggles and laughter. No sentence can begin to compensate us, end quote. The judge imposed the only sentence he could, life in prison with a minimum of 25 years before Lane can be considered for parole. But as devastating as the murder itself was, the trial also put a spotlight on the role of the police and the ways in which they had let Shana down. In April 2019, the Independent Office for Police Conduct released its findings. The conclusion was damning. Sussex police had failed Shana repeatedly. 2 officers were told that they would face gross misconduct proceedings, another faced misconduct charges, and several more staff were ordered into retraining. One of those officers, P.C. Mills, had already resigned before his disciplinary hearing. He was accused of ignoring Shana's report that Lane had broken into her house with a stolen key. The panel decided that his behavior amounted to misconduct, but not gross misconduct. Another officer, Trevor Godfrey, faced similar charges. He had dismissed Shana's harassment reports and treated her as though she were the problem, not the victim. Again, the verdict was simply misconduct. For Shana's family, these rulings felt like salt in the wound. They said, quote, the misconduct charge is a joke. The hearing was a sham, end quote. Independent watchdogs agreed that Sussex Police's failings were systemic. A review by Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary found that officers lacked training, mishandled stalking laws, and consistently underestimated the risks that victims like Shana face. Her parents put it plainly, quote, our daughter took her concerns to the police and instead of being protected, was treated like a criminal. She paid for the police's lack of training, care, and poor attitude with her life. It's too little, too late, end quote. In the wake of Shana's murder, Sussex Police introduced new training and protocols for stalking cases. But reforms like these come at the highest cost, bought with the life of a teenager who should have been safe. On August 25th, 2016, Shana Grice was killed by the very man she had begged police to protect her from. She was 19 years old. Her case is now a horrible reminder of what happens when victims aren't believed, when stalking isn't taken seriously, and when systems fail. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found Shana's story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It'll help us grow. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!